back, everybody, to another edition of the All Around Atlanta Sports Podcast, or Atlanta Teen Sports Center, whatever you prefer to call us. I'm Blake Newsom, joined by Falcons daily owner Mark Legate, talking a little bit of SEC football today, and 3 teams from the East, 3 teams from the West that are usually the biggest contenders in the conference. Mark, how you feeling today, and are you excited for football to be back here in a few days?
Yeah, Blake, it's coming up around the corner quicker than I expected, but I'm excited to get some good old-fashioned Southern Eastern Conference football, so that'll be fun.
You took my words right out of my mouth. Southeastern Conference football, always great on Saturdays, and we got our Atlanta Falcons playing on the Sundays, who definitely look like a top 5 team in the league still. Anyway, we'll get things started. We'll start with your Big Oranges. If you guys don't know this, Mark is getting ready to move into college. If you don't mind me saying this on video, Mark, is you're moving in to be a Tennessee Volunteer in a few days. So I'll start with you a little bit on Tennessee's football news and about Butch Jones on the hot seat.
Yeah, Blake. So as everyone knows, Tennessee is kind of a treadmill team, and they haven't really made the next step into being a contender in the SEC East, as everyone knows. And Butch Jones, as everyone knows, Tennessee has had one of the best recruiting classes in the past few seasons. So there's no reason why Butch Jones, when he has the players and he has the talent, that Tennessee should be better than what they are putting out on the table. So Butch Jones is on the hot seat. I've heard from multiple people that if Butch Jones does not go 9-3, that he will be fired at the end of the season.
And one thing I don't understand is why Tennessee would do that. Yes, they, as Mark said, they are a treadmill program, but I don't understand how Tennessee is playing in one of the hardest divisions in college football in the whole country. Definitely the best conference. I have no arguments there, unless you're a hater. But Tennessee does play in a hard division right now. They were supposed to win the East last year. I will give them that. They were supposed to win, cannot pull it out. Florida, even though they did beat them, ended up coming out in the end with an extra win over LSU, which boosted their way to the title game. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Do you have any other points you want to point out about the Tennessee football squad this year? What about losing Joshua Dobbs and then Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, I mean, that would be hard. Tennessee, they definitely have a quarterback coming up. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Is it Quinton Dormady?
Yes, he's a pro-style quarterback. He should be able to fill in the role. Every team always loses a big-name player, but they always have to just bounce back. Like I said earlier, Butch Jones, he did have one of the best recruiting classes again this year, so he should have a player that's able to fill in the spot for Alvin Kamara. But one thing I do want to mention, I do see where Tennessee is coming from, where they are wanting to fire Butch Jones if he does not go 9-3. I mean, he came from Cincinnati. He's had his time in Tennessee. He's had one of the top recruiting classes every single year, yet he's still not able to take the talent that he has and produce a more winning season and going into a bigger bowl game than he previously has. So, I think 9-3 is I think that's a favorable record. I think that they should say if he goes 8-4 that they'll fire him. But you just have to really see how the season goes and how it all pans out.
And definitely another point to make on Tennessee before we move to another team is that, as you said, they've had one of the top recruiting classes here every year. But if Butch Jones did not pull up his game and step it up here, and he does end up getting fired at the end of the year, would you say that maybe Charlie Strong down in South Florida, let's say he has a good year down there, decides to come up and leave back to give it one more shot at the big level coaching and SEC football or ACC, whatever conference he wants to go to, would you say that'd definitely be an option for Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Strong, he had during his time in Texas, he had a favorable record.
He just played in a very tough division.
Yes, and but I do see Charlie Strong staying in South Florida. I've heard that he really enjoys Tampa. He's already bought his house there. He moved his family down. He really likes Tampa, and he's already calling it his home. So I think after a year, even if they do go undefeated, or if they go 12-1, whatever the record may be, 11-1, I do think he will stay there. Now, one coach that could possibly go and fill in for Butch Jones if he does get fired, which no one is really talking about, would be Les Miles. They could potentially reach out to him. He knows LSU football. He knows SEC. He knows what it takes. So that is a candidate that I think would be a really, really great fit for Tennessee if Butch Jones does end up getting fired.
And one last key before we move on to another team is that I'm liking what you're saying, Les Miles, because one of the reasons he couldn't get is why he got fired is he started a different topic is that he started kind of losing more games down the stretch during every year, and he'd never really. And then it got to the point during the year where he wasn't starting off good either. But one of the main points is he could not beat Alabama. They beat him in 2011, I believe, in the regular season. Ended up losing into them in New Orleans for the national championship, and never. I think they only made it across the 50-yard line once that whole game, if I remember that correct fact. And they never beat him since until Les Miles was fired. So, and Oregon got close. It was only a 10-0 loss for them, but I don't know. I think it'll definitely be easier for Les Miles to only have to face maybe Florida and Georgia in a tight division because, the West usually has Auburn, Alabama already in there. Then you got LSU, who we coach. Then there's a few sleepers like Ole Miss might be good one year, and then Arkansas is good the next year. It really depends. But anyway, we'll move on here, and we'll stick with the East, and we'll move on to Georgia, not our home team, not the team that we like, but the team that plays in our state. So Georgia, according to this practice report, they have a key defensive starters missing, and doesn't look. I mean, they do look like they have a fine schedule this year coming into the Florida-Georgia game. It's usually which decides who goes to Atlanta for the East. But one thing to point out is that they're not really prepared. I'd say they're prepared, but one thing to note out is that they're playing Appalachian State opening week. Mark, I'm sure you remember this of what Appalachian State almost pulled off here against Tennessee opening week last year, and they snuck up and beat Michigan just 5-6 years ago. So I think one thing to look out for is week 1 is Georgia's going to be focusing on their Notre Dame game. They're not going to be really ready, I guess, for Appalachian State, and they could sneak up and give them an early loss L. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
I don't know. Georgia, they did lose a lot of key pieces last year, especially in the draft. But this is Jacob Eason's second year. First year, he was brand new. He was a small kid from Washington, going down south to the hardest division in college football. He had a rough time. Everyone saw that. Georgia dealt with injuries on offense. I think Georgia is going to be the team to beat in the SEC, and that's coming from a Tennessee fan. That's hard to say for me. But I think Georgia's going to be the team to beat. And you're a Florida fan, so that must be even harder.
Yeah.
But I mean, Georgia has the talent. If their offense can stay healthy, their defense, their defense will maintain. It'll be okay. I'm not saying that it's going to be great, but their offense is something special. You saw what Chubb did 2 years ago before he got injured, and you saw what Gurley did. I mean, two different players, but you saw what Gurley did before he got injured. They're saying that Chubb is running faster, he's benching more, he's squatting more. I think this is a dude that's going to change Georgia's offense completely this upcoming season.
One thing to point out is if they can both stay healthy, Chubb and Michelle have both had injury prone in the last few years, and Chubb missed a considerable amount of games both of the last years, but then you got Evander Holyfield's son in the third stringer that can back him up. But yeah, Georgia has probably the best running back depth, probably I would say top 5 in the country based on what they have in talent and skills there. One thing to point out is you got a 4-star as your backup quarterback recruit. That's just something amazing. You're getting all these recruits from all over the country that are wanting to play for their Bama-fication Kirby Smart. This team does look to be on the rise, and it looks like Florida and Georgia definitely look both on the rise, and this might be just as hard as the West here in a few years. Do you have any other points to make on Georgia?
No. I do have one more point. Georgia, like you said, they have the 4-star quarterback coming in. If Eason does have another year where he struggles, I would not be surprised for Kirby Smart to make the move just to sit Eason for maybe a game, or even the first game, maybe share some reps in the spring game. Not in the spring game, sorry. When the scrimmages. But I'm drawing a blank on his name. But he's drawing comparison to Eason as well. They're both pro-style quarterbacks. So I would just watch out for that Easton's playing time on the field if he does struggle like last season.
And that's definitely, and they work perfectly. As you said, they're a pro football quarterback, or that's the type of offense that Georgia likes to run, is they like to run the pro-style offense.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll move on to the West here for a little while. We'll move into Auburn. They've been all right the last years. They definitely not as good as when they first hired their coach back to be part of the Auburn coaching staff again. Made it to a national championship game, barely lost to Florida State, choked up a 21-3 lead, not 28-3, folks, but 21-3. It's a completely different game. Don't hate on me. I did not say 28-3. I'm a Falcons fan. Anyway, one thing to say is, as we were getting to talk about Les Miles, is that they're in the SEC West, where Alabama is already in that division. They play them every year, and they get one shot at the final week of the year. It's not like you get to play them mid-season, and if, we lost, but still we have a few extra weeks. They're specific rivals, and that people cherish that day for 365 days, all 364 days that game isn't played. And probably the top 10 best rivalries in football. Auburn's just been one or two steps behind the last few years. They've never really been to that point to where they're still considerably. Hold on, I gotta pause this 1 second. Sorry, guys, I had to pause it there. A little bit of kitten problems going on. Anyway, we'll get back into the Auburn talk. Auburn, as I've said already, they've always been one or two steps behind late in the year. They've had a few years when they've had the chance to win and get this in situation in Atlanta the week after, but they've never really taken that opportunity. They did have that one year where they had the kick six at the end of the game to win, which everybody remembers. But other than that, Auburn's already been out of the race, or they have a specific chance if they win and Alabama loses the week before, you still get a chance to win or get a chance in Atlanta. Other than that, I think Auburn just needs to basically base their defense around Alabama's offense and Jalen Hurts over the next few years. Kind of build up their team like a pro team and be to the point where they can build it around their division rivals so they'll be ready to play Alabama and not just study them the week before game week. Study the film during the season, see what they're doing and see what they can do to improve, to be ready also to get a win. Because, Alabama doesn't lose much. So we'll see. Hopefully Auburn might challenge Alabama this year. I don't know. I'm going to get your thoughts on this, Mark. Do you think Auburn will ever be able to challenge Alabama in the next few years?
Yeah, as you said earlier, Auburn's been a few steps behind the past couple of years, but it always seems that when they face Alabama, they get this boost of energy, and there's a spark in their offense and defense, just the whole team in general, and they put up some type of competition and make it a game. So I think they're going to challenge them this year, but they don't have the talent to go the next step and defeat Alabama. I don't think. No, Alabama is in my opinion, I think they're on the decline of their dynasty, but I still don't think Auburn has the talents and the pieces to defeat Alabama.
And I definitely agree with you there. Anyway, we'll move back into the East. We got one more team remaining here that we pulled up from the East, and that's Florida. What are your thoughts on Malik Zaire? Because I'm sure you've seen a few highlights of him from Notre Dame. And if he does end up winning the job, because one thing Coach McElwain has pointed out for Florida is he's won the job. I mean, didn't mean to say that. He's knows the starting quarterback, but he has not released it to the public. Most likely to hide it from Michigan, I believe, in some way. And now with Antonio Callaway are probably one of our best players and being suspended for opening week. He's out for some reasons that continued on from last season. He's out for the game, so if Malik Zaire wins the job and does a good job here opening the week against Michigan in the Cowboy Bowl, do you think they have a chance of beating Michigan, or do you think it's all eyes are on Michigan and seeing how they bounce back with losing a lot of people from the draft?
I think all eyes are on Michigan after losing a lot of people from the draft. They lost so many pieces on offense and defense, it seemed. So it's really going to, Jim Harbaugh, he's not going to let Michigan embarrass him. Jim Harbaugh is probably one of the smartest coaches in college football, in my opinion. He just has that boost of energy to hype his players. He has the knowledge of football. As everyone could see when he was in the NFL, he led the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. When he was in Stanford, he is knowledgeable. Everyone knows that. And I don't think he's going to let Michigan be a team to have a great season and then just, hit rock bottom. So I think all eyes are on Michigan.
Another noticeable effort is that if Florida can stay healthy at offense and they get the right quarterback situated early in the season, I definitely think they're a dangerous team. I mean, their schedule looks easier than it was last year based on you get LSU at home, you get Tennessee, Texas A&M all at home. The Georgia game is always neutral, so you always get a lot of fans to come out and support you. You look at their SEC road games, and they're Missouri, South Carolina, and Kentucky, a team that has been beaten by them 30 straight years. And then Missouri, who looks like they're on the decline already after losing Gary Pinkel. And South Carolina, Will Muschamp has had experience at Florida and the SEC all around the coaching wheel, and knows he's not doing so hot. I don't know. I think Florida does look really dangerous, not trying to be a homer or a bandwagon here, or trying to support my team, but if we can get the right quarterback situated and our schedule pans out for us, if our offense can stay healthy, based on we're having a lot of returners in Dre Massey, Antonio Callaway will be back for week 2 to play most of the year, hopefully, and then we got a lot more depth. Now we're returning 3 running backs: P. Ryan, Scarlett, and Mark Thompson. This team does look really scary, in my opinion. Their defense does not look as good, though, but I think with a better offense, I think it'll balance out nicely. And with our schedule, it looks like I think we do have a shot at the college football playoff. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, one thing I'm surprised about Florida is no matter how many pieces that they lose on defense, it always seems like they get the right people and their defense is just very dominant, as it has been the past few seasons. Like you said, if they can get the ball rolling on offense early in the year, Florida will be a scary team, and I think Florida could be a team that could beat Alabama. I think they do have the talent. They do have the fans behind them to support them. So if they can get the ball rolling early in the season, if they can get everything clicking for them, Florida is a scary team. And like you said, I think they could make the college football playoff.
And just a quick guess out there, but do you think there's a chance of, because you know how there's only 4 spots in the college football playoff, do you think there's a chance that 2 will make it from the same conference this year? Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't know. The ACC proved himself last year, the Big Ten. So many conferences are stepping up in the past few seasons, especially last season. I think it's going to be hard for 2 teams in the same conference to make the playoffs. So I'm going to say no on that one. Even though the SEC is very dominant, I do not see that happening.
And one thing to note out is, this is a meme that I'm going to repeat from last year that we heard from Ohio State is, did you win your conference championship? No. Did you win your division? No. You're in! Welcome to the college football playoff. Yep. So, we know how that rolls, but I agree with you there. I don't really think it's going to be very tough for more than one team in the same conference to make out of 4 teams in the country. Because if they are, they're probably going to be meeting on championship day, right?
Yep.
So, it just doesn't pan out. Anyway, before we wrap things up, we'll move on to LSU and then Alabama. LSU, based on SB Nation, is they need a little bit more on offense to be a contender in the playoffs, but or have a good bowl game. But it looks like this team is on the rise once again. At Oregon, they gave him he had a good interim run. Looks like they want to keep him, and they have. They decided to give him a full-time job for LSU. And what are your overall thoughts on at Oregon? Do you think he'll be a good for LSU, and do you think LSU has a chance of getting probably second in the West or so, and have a chance at maybe a Sugar Bowl or something that's huge, but not quite a college football playoff game?
Yeah, I do think he'll be successful in LSU. I'm excited to see what he did last year. I'm excited to see that he did get a full-time job with LSU. When I was at the draft in April, I actually met up with him at our hotel, and I was just talking to him a little bit just about the upcoming season, what his expectations were. And he is a coach that he is going to do everything in his power. I know every coach does this, but there was something special about him. And he's behind his players 110%. He's going to do whatever it takes for them to be successful. I think LSU is going to be dominant like they have in the past few seasons. Well, they've kind of been on the decline since Les Miles, the end of his time in LSU. But during the prime of Les Miles' years in LSU, I think LSU is going to be a team that's going to return to that caliber. So I'm excited to see what the team does. I'm excited to see what the coach's career is going to be in LSU. So I think it's a bright future in Louisiana.
And while we're on the NFL draft topic, because I forgot to ask you last time you came on the Hawk Show back when I was in Boston, what was it like being, I know you called for the Titans, but what was it like getting to call NFL draft pick? I mean, were you nervous, or what did it feel like?
I wasn't too nervous. It was a surreal experience, to be honest. When I was up there, I met so many great people. I met Saban, I met Dabo Swinney, I met Trubisky, I met Deshaun Watson. Coach-wise, I met, like I said, Saban, Kirby Smart, Mark Richt. I met Goodell. I met John Elway. Like, it was an experience of a lifetime for sure. And then when I was in the green room, I met Maurice Jones-Drew, Scott Hansen, Alex Flanagan. So that was really cool. But I was actually going to announce the Falcons pick, and then they ended up trading that pick to I think it was the Browns, and then the Browns traded it to the Titans. So, that was something special, and it was something fun. I wasn't nervous, but when I got up there to announce the pick, everyone did boo me. So I'm not really a fan of Philadelphia anymore.
Yeah. But doesn't it seem like they do that every year? If it's not their team, no matter who's hosting it, it's like no matter who's the team, it's like, oh, it's not the Bears, oh, it's not the Eagles, oh, boo!
Yep.
And definitely, if New England ever hosts it, they'll get booed no matter what, even if it is their team. Yep. And we know why for that. But one more question on the NFL draft. Do you think if the Falcons would have ever traded that pick, who would you have liked to call that name based on the spots who were still on the roster at that time and what the Falcons needed? Because, the draft wasn't completed yet. You were in mid-draft form of, okay, we drafted these first 3 picks. What could we use here? And what would I like to call? Because this is the person I think would fit best. I'm not Dan Quinn, but I like this guy.
You're talking about in the 7th round?
Oh, in the 4th round. Didn't you call a pick in the 4th round?
It was the 7th round.
Oh, was it 7th round? Oh, my bad.
Yeah. But, 4th round, there was so much talent in the 4th round. There was this year's draft class was something special. It's going to be probably similar to 2011. Just talent-wise. 4th round, I'm not sure. I really did.
If you want to say the 7th round, because I know that's when you picked, you can say them both if you want.
I would say Ja'Tarius Jones, but the Falcons ended up signing him. This draft class is something special. I've met up with about 5 of the guys, and I've taken them out to lunch, and I've hung out with them just to really sit down and pick their brains and just see what training camp is like, see what Atlanta's like for them. And they've all said great things about Atlanta. They said great things about Dimitroff, Arthur Blank, Dan Quinn. And one thing that really made me happy is they said the brotherhood is real. And they said right when they arrived to Atlanta, I met up with Deontay Burton. He was a wide receiver. He said Julio Jones just came up to him, and he was just like shaking his hand, talking to him, introducing him to all the guys. Ja'Tarius Jones. He said that Jack Crawford came up to him. Eric Saubert. I met up with him. He said again Julio. He said Austin Hooper came up to him. So the brotherhood is real. If people don't know that, they should know that now. The brotherhood is real. It's alive. And that is something special that Atlanta has that no other team has. And I know I'm an Atlanta fan. I know I own an Atlanta blog. But put that all to the side. The Falcons will return to the Super Bowl again. I promise that. The Falcons not only they kept the roster the same. They didn't lose any people. But then they ended up getting the pieces that they needed to make the next step. I know the Patriots got Brandon Cooks. Who cares? Tom Brady's 40. There's going to be a point in his career where he's either going to get hurt or he's not going to be able to put up numbers like he always does. And I think the Falcons...
And we do play in a tougher division than the Patriots. Before we get back to college football, is that they play in a division with, let's see, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills. Look up, when we always have somebody else in our division who ends up stepping up and challenge us every year. Before it was, sometimes the Saints are good and they pop up and give us a challenge. Sometimes it's the Bucs, sometimes it's the Panthers. It doesn't matter. it depends on what team is having their year. But there's always two teams that are battling it out in the NFC South. When it's the Patriots, how many games are they going to win their division by this year up in their division? That's one point I have, is they always have the easiest route to the playoffs, in my opinion, in the whole league.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get back into college football talk here before we wrap things up. We'll move on to the big boys of the SEC in Alabama. Coming off their 3 years where they have started a new quarterback, this year it looks like they finally got a man in Jalen Hurts. He definitely looks, based on his career from last year and only going into his sophomore year, he does look like a very good quarterback. He's a runner. He does remind me of Deshaun Watson just a little bit. I mean, it looks like he's a runner, and Deshaun Watson was more of a passer, but he could run. I think that Jalen Hurts looks like he might be the Deshaun Watson or the Michael Vick, based on the dual threat of Alabama. And coming into his only sophomore year, being able to say that, that's just ridiculous. I don't know if that's just ridiculous on my part, or if it's that good. What are your thoughts on this, Mark?
I'm not sure if I would say Vic. I know, Vic was something special in college football. And I think a good comparison for Hurts would be Lamar Jackson now. I don't think he's going to put up the touchdowns that Jackson did last year, but I think that is a perfect comparison, in my opinion, for Jalen Hurts.
And I will say, maybe I shouldn't have said Vic or Watson, but one thing I do agree on, Lamar Jackson. Trust me, the reason I didn't say him is his name didn't really actually enter my mind in that second. Anyway, before we wrap things up, looks like Alabama just got a little bit of injury notes based on their news here. Not too much to say, based on they're always one of the top 10 programs. I mean, I think the only time I remember them being out of the top 5 was when they were playing the week after they played Texas A&M, when Johnny Manziel came in and upset them a few years ago. But other than that, I haven't really seen a time where Alabama slipped out of the top 10. And looks like, I'm going to get your little opinion on this, Marcus. Why do you think Alabama's on the decline? I'm not sure if they are or not, but I'm going to get your opinion on why you think they're on the decline.
Well, Saban, okay, you have to look at what Saban's done in Alabama, okay? Saban, I cannot recall how many championships he has, but I could see Saban having like 2 more years, getting 2 rings, and then calling it a career. And when Saban goes, they're not going to have a dynasty, in my opinion. They may be a team to go 9-3, but that's the end of Alabama's dynasty. They could still be good, but that's the end of the dynasty, in my opinion. Saban makes Alabama. Every high school player wants to say they've played for Nick Saban. And when Nick Saban leaves, that dynasty's over. I could see Saban. There's been talks about him. This is a long shot, but there's been talks about him leaving Alabama, possibly going to the pros, making more money. There's so many doors for Saban right now. It seems like every offseason there's a question, what is Saban going to do? And I feel like Saban only has 2, maybe 3 more years in Alabama, and when he leaves, that dynasty's over.
At least when those recruits that he picks up graduate, I would say maybe 3 years after Saban, because once those guys realize that Saban's out the door, they'll want to transfer right away, or they'll quit the team, or they'll want to go to the draft as soon as possible and keep them get away from there as quick as possible. But I'd say once those recruits in, Saban's out of there. Now that I realize it, you're right. That dynasty is over. Anyway, Mark, I think that does it for our show, guys. We're getting a little bit off topic, or not off topic, but getting the show a little bit longer than it needs to be. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. I'm Blake Newsom, your host, along with Falcons Daily owner and 7th round draft pick announcer, Mark Legate. We'll see you next time. Go A-Town.
Peace up, A-Town down. Yeah. Okay. Let's go.